Would you pull that one a little closer? Yeah, this one. Here.
Recording in progress.
All right, we're recording. All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Monday, August 1st, 2022, City Council meeting. Roll call, please.
Dave Anderson? Here. Herb Roberg? Here. Jen Mazias? Jen Mazias? You're on mute, Jen. Skip.
We'll come back to her.
Mayor McGrath? Mayor McGrath? Tom Nimas? Here. Mayor Novacek?
Here.
Lord Tulowitzki? Tulowitzki? Jen Mazias?
You're not.
Maybe I'm not. Let's try me. How do I check my speaker? That's an excellent question.
Doesn't it just have the microphone with an X or a line through it if you're muted? Jen? Oh, but that would be all of us. And she's the only one logged on to Indian Health. Jen.
Oh, uh-oh. That's not what I want. She's back on mute. Well, let's ask Melissa when she joins.
Jen may have technical issues, it sounds like, so.
Hi there. Sorry, I was having problems with my speaker, but I can hear you guys now.
Okay, so you can
Can you
hear
hear
us?
me?
Excellent.
Yes, we were wondering if it was on this end.
Okay, thank
It was on my end, but I got my speaker fixed and I can hear you.
you. Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay,
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the city council minutes from July 11, 2022.
I'll second that.
motion by Karen, second by Tom. Any questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, approval of monthly expenditures via roll call vote.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the monthly expenditures as reviewed.
Can we do that if they have another review by two?
Yes or no?
It's not
I withdraw my motion.
you only have one. The council can still decide if it wants to approve it with just a review of one member, but not all committee members. Table.
Or we can, is anything pending our approval?
And I withdrew my motion, so it could be
All right,
added to September's agenda.
okay. Motion was withdrawn. We'll move on to the next item, which is public comment. Is anyone here tonight that would like to give public comment, please come forward and sign the note there. With your contact info, please.
Sure will. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sweet. Hey, everyone. Kelly Peterson, Community Development Educator with UW-Madison Extension. I'm just here on a courtesy call tonight from Bayfield County. As you might know, last Tuesday, the Bayfield County Board voted unanimously to release an RFP for up to 60 units of residential housing on county-owned land, a piece of property within the city of Washburn. The county envisions approximately 40 to 60 units of new construction, ideally to include a mix of senior and workforce housing. As you know, both of these are in critically high demand in Bayfield County. The proposed site is a 9.5 acre parcel that sits adjacent to Northern Lights Nursing Home, has frontage on Highway 13, and would be ideally suited for this type of development. The county is viewing this RFP as an opportunity to invest in solutions to these issues and increase the availability of housing in order to better meet the needs of residents of the county. I'll just read from you a brief part of the RFP. It says Bayfield County is committed to creating an inclusive and sustainable community. Increasing the supply of life cycle housing and diversifying area housing stock is one important way the county can play a key role. Bayfield County is committed to supporting the development of housing that is attractive to and accessible to seniors and support aging in place. The county is also committed to supporting its community of full-time residents with greater access to rental options for young families, veterans, essential workers, and other service providers. So as you know, both Bayfield County and the city of Washburn have invested in recent study and surveys to identify community needs and preferences. The RFP that Bayfield County put out asked that developers interested in responding align their design proposals with those community preferences. Those included proposals that emphasize a neighborhood-style development made up of smaller single-level cottage and bungalow-type units, any multifamily units broken up into smaller clusters. They also asked that the development would include amenities like garages, high-speed internet, yards and gardens, community gathering space, and also include infrastructure to support sustainable living like solar electric and electric vehicle charging. So the RFP the county has put out has asked that proposals are submitted by Friday, September 16th. And then if something meets those qualifications, a selected developer would then have approximately 2 months to work with the city and the county to prepare an application for WHEDA's December 2022 deadline to apply for funding support, which is a critical part of financing for a development like this. So as the process moves forward, the county looks forward to more formal discussion with you all on how the city and county might work together to support this project and ensure that the final development proposal aligns with the needs of residents of both the city and the county. If you have any questions about the RFP, feel free to reach out and contact me, or you can reach out to Mark Abels-Allison, Bayfield County Administrator, and we'll happily discuss the details further. Thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that update. I don't think a lot of people were able to attend the county board meeting, so thank you very, very much for that brief but informative summary.
Great.
Much
Yeah,
appreciated.
feel free to reach out if you need more info.
Will do. Thank you. Is anyone else here for public comments this evening? Either in person or online? Seeing none, we will move on to our next item, which is mayoral announcements, proclamations, and appointments. The only announcement I would have is, what a great Brownstone weekend. It was really nice. I mean, the weather cooperated, which helps. But it seemed really busy in town, and I really, I like I think that the way that the street remains open, giving the car show more room down at the lake is great. Also, it captures the people that are driving through town who see that there are things going on and maybe choose to stop because of that, instead of routing everyone around off of the main drag. So kudos to you, Melissa, and your crew, in addition to everyone else who worked at making this a great weekend. Other than that, I do not have any other announcements, proclamations, or appointments, so we will move on to the next item, which is discussion and action on resolution number 22-004 to modify the Lake Superior Scenic Byway location in the city of Washburn. Is there, and that's tab 1 in your packet, is there a motion on this item to get us started with discussion?
I'll make a motion to accept it as it is in print.
Okay,
I'll second.
motion by Tom, second by Dave. So the main reason we have this on our agenda is to start the process for being able to allow additional signage downtown, which is something that a lot of businesses have expressed interest in. I had another email from a business who is interested in us making a change to our sign ordinance, who was going to be here tonight but was not able to be here. And as you remember, we had some businesses at the last meeting also expressed that sentiment. So this is the first step in that process. If we go ahead and exempt the downtown commercial districts and or industrial from the byway designation, we are then free to make changes to the sign ordinance, which might be more in line with what people are looking for in our downtown, which is some additional signage for their businesses. Does anyone have any questions or comments or discussion on this item? Karen?
Madam Mayor, I am not opposed to removing this area from the byway. My only cautionary comment is that when we begin to look at our sign ordinance as it applies to that area, that we do it with some thoughtful, in a thoughtful manner, so that as a result, our downtown area is not overwhelmed with signs. You know, we've talked at length about how we wanted to improve the look on Bayfield Street. And with the new street renovation, new curbs, terraces, new light poles, that will be a major step to improving the look in our downtown. So simultaneously, I do not believe that it would be helpful to have just a plethora of signs. Yes, we want our businesses to be adequately identified and represented so that people driving through or residents in our community know where those businesses are located. But I just hope that as we move forward, we do it with thoughts of, you know, the overall look, if you will, to our downtown area.
Very good. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no further comments. Oh, go ahead,
I
Jen.
have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did we learn any? Can you guys hear me okay? Did we learn anything from last council meeting? I know we were gonna look into other maybe downtown areas if they had been exempt or not, and any kind of lessons learned. Like I thought we talked about checking in with maybe like Fort Wayne or.
Sorry, checking in with where?
I thought like other communities, like is Bayfield exempt from it? Like I thought we were gonna kind of check into that a little bit.
Oh, understood. I think Bayfield would be the only other city that would have this be applicable. And I don't know that we checked on that. I don't know that that was on anybody's to-do list. So my apologies, and everyone here. We could, I don't know what we could do. I don't have that information at the tip of my fingers at this point. I guess what I can say is, I know that the DOT was, I think, slightly surprised that we didn't want our downtown exempted when we did this initially. And I think it's very common for cities, and that's why they make it automatically exempted unless you specifically pass an ordinance that does not exempt you, your downtown. So I'm sorry, I don't have any further information for you than that.
Okay,
I know that the city of Bayfield has some very restrictive sign ordinances. They don't allow very many signs at all. I don't know if they allow off-premise signage at all, regardless of whether it was the byway.
yeah, I didn't know if that was because they were on the scenic byway, they were established by design. You know, I guess for me, I would just echo, you know, Karen's comments in terms of, you know, it's kind of kept us thinking about like what those signs would look like off-site. You know, we do have some signs right now that are sitting out there that aren't relevant. That's just a shame. So like last week or last month, we said that we had people come, but I think it was just one, and we gave her a solution of contacting some signs that are like kind of misleading in our community that maybe we could have go down to a business. So, I mean, I guess I could see this kind of as a need to some extent, but also, you know, I feel like we really have to be careful with our sign ordinance because pretty quickly, I mean, we already struggle, right? Like having a uniform look, trying to get everybody to kind of like come up with what we want our community to look like. And we're just not getting there. So I echo the caution.
Sure, thank you for that. I agree. I think that I think that by taking this step and then making some changes to our ordinance, we'll actually be able to solve some of those issues, hopefully, because currently you can't change the shape of the sign. And I think that's a big problem with wanting to reuse a sign that's shaped like a flame, for example. And so I think we will be able to address that in our ordinance change so that we can give some guidance and perhaps even require an existing sign to be removed before a new one can be put up or something like that. So that we can, you know, get rid of some of the out-of-date signage that exists and clean things up. So hopefully this will be a win-win for everyone.
I hope so, and I hope that we don't just jump in and open the floodgates and that we take our time and maybe form a committee to look at that branding study and really come up with a sign ordinance that reflects what we want for our community.
All right, very good. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Like,
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Moving on to our next item, discussion and action on unattended public display policy on city property. And this is tab 2 of our packet. Would anyone have a motion on this item to get us started with discussion?
I move to approve the draft of the unattended public display policy.
Second that motion.
Motion by Carl and second by Karen. Discussion. Anyone? Thank you for your work on this, Max, and it looks like we don't have any questions or discussion, so I will go ahead and ask that all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We now have a policy. Okay, next item, discussion and action on goose control efforts at West End Park / treatment plan area, treatment plant area, I think that's supposed to say. Tab 3 of your packet. So this is the time of year when we need to act if we're going to, and there usually is a need to act. So it looks like there is a plan in front of us. Does anyone have a motion on this item?
I move to approve the goose control effort this fall in accordance with the protocols.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the efforts as outlined here. Any questions, Tom?
My only suggestion would be, I think that population that's down there, we could take that down to, take out 75% of it, and probably alleviate a lot of that. Because that goose poop is all over the place down there.
So are you talking about 75% of the resident population?
Yes, 75% of everybody is down there. There's probably, what is that? What was there, 50 down there that day, Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty good population right now. I'm not sure like how it's decided on how many we take, I guess. If that's in conjunction with the DNR or what have you, and the limit of how many you can remove. One of the items that I was going to suggest is, I know at one time we formed a small committee, or a couple council members took it on to, and Tom and I were down there talking about, you know, the current measures that we used, which were two, like the little islands that we have, like some of these non-lethal methods. Like, you know, how well are they working? And if they're working, like, is there something else we can do down there to, I guess, discourage them from, we watch them go up by the other dock and then go right into the big field that's wet that we say we can't do anything with. Well, if it's wet, we can't do anything with it. Let's quit having it as goose habitat. And I know at one point we didn't mow that as like far down to try to deter the geese, and I'm not sure how that went. But I think I'm totally okay with us continuing to do some of the lethal actions, but I would like us to look at some of the vegetation options that we have, because it might help us in a couple different arenas, like the water retention and some other issues that we have at that lower field that's wet. And I know we did a little bit of that years ago, but I don't know if we ever really fully kind of went full circle and determined, you know, was it worth it? Is there something we can do? So I would hope that we can do something like that also.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any comments about that, as far as what we have done, or what could be done, or who might do that?
I can just speak on the issue of quotas or the 75% issue. What we authorize is shooting up to what is allowed by the DNR for allowable take during a goose season. The city, there's no way we could authorize more than that, which is 3 birds per day after September 15th and 5 birds per day from September 1st through September 15th. So we can't say you can take all of these birds all at once, all in one day.
Well, that I know, but is that with 100 or is that with 2 people down there?
Per person per day. So the more people we can get down there, the more birds per day could be taken legally. And also just, I think I do bring it up every year. It's Canada goose, not Canadian goose. Make that slight revision.
Okay, and here we're saying that our officers would be the ones doing the goose control.
On occasion, they have somebody else. They have other officers assist them.
Okay, so so this is saying that we are approving this, and then Jen is requesting that we do revisit some of the non-lethal methods. That's not part of the motion, but.
Yeah, I was just thinking that maybe it could go to the park committee at some point, Tony, and we could put it on the agenda, and we could perhaps like have them start to evaluate it and look at it. Like I said, the islands that we planted there to deter them, it seems to be working, and it has like a dual purpose, and there's some good pollinator species in there too. And I mean, I don't know, like I'd like to see if that was worth it, and then see if that could be employed in some other places to kind of start to, deter them a little bit. So perhaps it could just go to the Parks Committee. I don't know if you want to amend, if somebody, whoever did the motion, maybe would like to amend the motion that at least this is put to the Parks Committee to look at some of the vegetation options for the future.
And I'm not sure that we need to amend the motion. I think we can just, you control the agenda for Parks Committee, so we'll just trust that you'll add it to the agenda. How about that?
Okay, all right, sounds good.
All right.
Thanks.
Very good, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is discussion and action on proposed agreement with Bomar Appraisal Incorporated for assessing services and revaluation for 2023 and 2024. This is tab 4 in your packet.
I move approval of the proposed agreement with Bomar Appraisal for assessing services reevaluation 2023 and 2024.
I'll second that.
Motion by Karen, second by Tom. Are there any questions about this proposed agreement?
And Mayor, I don't have a question about the agreement, but I think we had talked at a previous time about the importance of alerting residents early on to the fact that this will be, 2023 will be a year of reevaluation, so that people are not concerned when someone is driving by and maybe taking pictures, and certainly when they get their tax bill to see a change in valuation. So I think just some public information early on to say, this is a requirement. This isn't just something we do on a whim, but it is something municipalities must do. And just early alert.
Thank you for that. I think that's a good thing to note. And also, just to reassure people that someone's not casing the joint. One question that I have is about the payments. Scott, I think in your memo you suggested not spreading it out over 2 years. Can you elaborate on your thinking about that?
We're gonna have less money next year, so I'd like to pay for it in 2024, so I'd like to try to take care of it all in 2023.
That is a good enough reason for me. Anyone else? Seeing no other comments or questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our next item is discussion and action on ordinance 2022-007, amending the conditions relating to non-use of an alcohol license. Tab 5 of your packet. And I would look for a motion on this to get us started with our discussion.
I'll make a motion to have Max draft a resolution to if that's necessary, I don't know, or we can changes as.
So just to clarify there, the request was made for me to draft something to get this implemented. So what's before you on tab 5 is all that would be necessary to get the change.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance as written.
Is there a second? I'll ask again, is there a second? For purposes of discussion, anyone here to make a second? Otherwise,
I'll second the motion for purpose of discussion.
okay. Second by Karen. Dave, do you want to Just give a summary of what your thoughts were with this?
Well, there are some businesses in town that are seasonal. And I think that probably is going to become more of a, there are other businesses that would also become more of a seasonal business. In the 180-day requirement, staying open 180 consecutive days. So I don't see, businesses have been operating in that fashion for several years now. And I don't see why we need to hold their feet to the fire over 180 days of not being open when.
So I just want to clarify, it's not being open for 180 consecutive days. It's being closed 180 consecutive days.
Right. Either way,
So there's
half a year, you're either open or you're closed. So.
But it doesn't have to be consecutive. You can be open, 3 days a week or 4 days a week or whatever, 3 some weeks and 4 some weeks, as long as it averages out to half of the year within a 1-year period. So all it's saying, or you could be open 7 days a week for half the year. It gives quite a bit of flexibility there, and I do think that there is some misunderstanding with the interpretation of the wording of the ordinance that has caused some confusion in.
If someone closed their doors for 6 months, they'd be in violation.
Correct.
Hey, Dave, I'm going to ask you to speak up a little bit. I can hear everybody really good except you and Scott when I speak.
So a business could close for half a year, 6 months, and be in violation. This is what I'm getting at. So if a seasonal business decides to close for the winter, and the spring and fall, and maybe they open up early spring and they close early fall, they would be in violation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you think that that's,
Problem.
do you think it's more valuable to allow a business to be closed half a year than to have a business who wants to be open more than half a year?
Well, quite honestly, I don't. This probably would help them. Making them stay open in the course of a winter when we have 0 traffic, forcing them to stay open is going to run them right into the bankruptcy. So if there's not enough traffic during that time of year to allow business to be profitable. So
I think we have a lot of businesses that stay open at least half the year. That
are
are,
they making money?
well, they're open.
Well, right.
And they've been
because
open
they
for a
have
long
to,
time.
because they have.
I haven't asked everyone.
Do we have any kind of a comparison of other communities and this type of ordinance and the amount of days that's required to be open for a liquor license?
Sure, hold on one second.
I can tell you that the vast majority of communities in Wisconsin have an ordinance similar to this or that's more restrictive than what we have.
I was trying to search some just right before the meeting so that I would have a concrete example. One that came out of Reedsville, Wisconsin. Theirs is if you're closed for 30 days, your license is revoked. So we're much more generous than that. Tony?
I did some searching as well and actually spoke with the clerk in Ashland. Ashland also has a 180-day time frame of being closed, but they also restrict that the businesses must be open 20 hours a week. So regardless of the time of year, they need to be open for business 20 hours a week.
So they're defining what open for business means in that way.
And I was searching with Bayfield, I couldn't find anything specific to this, but they have quite a elaborate system to revoke licenses where they demerit them based on different violations that occur throughout the year. They will fine and or suspend for months or revoke entirely.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, I was trying to think of Big Hill in kind of a similar situation, like, they have different places that definitely aren't open in the winter. Rucky's and a couple other ones. I think Morty's actually closes down in the winter. So it'd kind of be interesting to look at that. I can see the side of, Mary, like you said, it's, we have a limited amount of having these licenses, and it is a privilege to have them, and it is a big deal. And so, not having businesses that are coming into our community that need one versus businesses that are only open 2 days a week in the summer, that's a trade-off, right? So I appreciate the discussion.
Thank you. I know I spoke someone from the help me out here. What's the Tavern League? Thank you. The Tavern League about this, and they were thinking that there might be other options for businesses that are of a particular type that might work for us. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's something that could certainly be looked into. If we do have different types of businesses wanting to operate under different business models that aren't, exactly conforming to this particular ordinance. And that's something that we can certainly look into. Tom?
I can't see raising us to 320. I think 180 is too many days. I mean, you can't say that Patsy's would be a viable business if that was only open 45 days a year. They'd be bankrupt. Same thing with Nichols, Snug. Those guys use those licenses day in and day out, and they stay open year round. I can't see upping this up unless we can grow this population by 600 people here in a couple of months, so that the restaurant that wants one, they can get a license, which you use it, it's open and it's packed every day.
Right. So when we have one or two open all year, that's probably that's the saturation point, right, of profitable business with the amount of people that are patronizing that particular bar. But to have all of them open, if one is to close, it's probably going to make the others more profitable.
To a point, but with the ice fishermen, you get Patsy's, Nichols, and Snug, Patsy's is packed.
Right, and and my point is, we're making other businesses that have liquor that are of a seasonal nature, forcing them to be open for half the year when they're not pulling a profit for half of it. Now we can negotiate the 45 days to 90, let's say, so that they're open for at least 3 months out of the year. I just think that we need to do something so that the businesses that don't have the traffic flow in the winter can still maintain which is a needed business in the community in the summer and spring and fall, can still be in step with our ordinance instead of being in violation.
I see your point, but I think for the number of licenses that we're talking about, we're talking about what, 8 total? I don't know that that would make a difference with that limited number of businesses that we have. The other point is, if a business needs to alter their business model so that they are successful in order to retain a liquor license by adding a restaurant or doing something that's going to be more attractive to people that are here year-round,
Well,
you know,
right.
that would be another option.
At this point, there's not enough foot traffic in the off-season for anybody to put up another restaurant. That, you know, we've got one that's gonna be going in across the street, hopefully. I just don't see, we need to do something to help the folks that need to close. Stage North, in particular, is not, there's no way that can work right now with the amount of foot traffic and traffic period that we have through Washburn. It just won't work. And, you know, and we have a $2 million building over there that, you know, is probably going to, you know, fold up if we don't do something.
If we don't do
If
something.
we don't help with the amount of time that person has to stay open, you know, I'm concerned that we're gonna have an empty building sitting over there.
Everyone realizes that this was the ordinance when these businesses were
I get it.
opened and were purchased,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
I guess I have a question for Max about the alternate type of license, which would be, is it something for a convention center?
So we have, and that's specifically relating to Class B, so hard alcohol licenses, which we have a quota on. This current non-use statute applies to any licensed premises. So if a grocery store or a gas station was not open 180 days, they also couldn't be licensed. But we can exceed our quota of 8 licenses for certain types of businesses. Full service restaurant with a interior permanent seating capacity of 300 or more persons. A hotel that has 50 rooms or more and also has an adjoining banquet room that can hold at least 500 people, 400 people. An opera house or a theater operated by a nonprofit organization. That one specifically, though, only allows the service of alcohol in connection with a ticketed event. So that was looked into for the Bell Tower Bar, and it likely potentially could allow service during a ticketed event, but not just as an operating bar when there aren't those other events.
Can happy hour be a ticketed event?
No.
Thought I'd try.
Ticketed performances. So if you're
ticketed.
performing,
Ooh, it could be a whole new.
yes.
Hold on.
So those are the types of areas where we could get in excess of our quota.
Okay.
And then that doesn't necessarily say anything about this non-use provision, but I think the thought there is if we had more licenses available, we wouldn't have to worry about the non-use or periodic non-use of some of them.
So the banquet hall has to be adjoining to a hotel?
A hotel, well, it
Physically
wouldn't
attached?
work. The hotel here, I don't believe has 50 or more rooms.
Well, it's 50.
Yeah,
50 or more rooms
And
and an attached restaurant or banquet hall.
What if,
So the one that potentially could work is in exceeding these quotas. If there are facilities in Washburn that could meet this definition, is a full service restaurant with an interior permanent seating capacity of 300 or more persons. So we're working on trying to find whether the Harborview could meet that at some point, whether the proposed new brew pub could meet that, so that we could have, and Tony and I have been working on this, so that we could find ways to exceed that quota.
I do have an answer on that.
Yes.
And then Karen.
They would need to have 300 seats.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter the capacity of 300, they would have to have 300 seats.
Karen.
Well, I guess my question to you, Dave, is that with Stage North, wasn't their situation exacerbated by COVID and the fact that there were no scheduled performances for a couple of years, other than one that was outdoors for Christmas?
I believe it closed prior to COVID, as far as the performances. Because I went to go try out for a show.
Okay.
The night he announced he was closing.
Okay, okay. But I know that the Groundlings have plans, they've already done auditions for performances scheduled. And isn't this requirement mute if on those days when they have performances, the bar is open and operating?
I think when Mr. Weinell built the theater, having the liquor license and having the bar open on nights that there weren't performances was probably part of his business plan. So I think that's a necessary component of being solvent. I think at the theater in particular is running the bar in addition to the theater and performances.
But my point was that if there are performances scheduled in the fall and winter, that would be times that bar would be open.
Oh, sure.
And so I don't see that our current ordinance would bother them.
Well, you have to also take into consideration, there's an or clause currently, which is, or a business is not open at least 50% of the days within a 12-month period. So there's still that half a year kind of component to the current ordinance. Anyone?
Okay. I just read my argument. That's right. I need to look at the orders.
Well, I mean, there are other municipalities south of here that we can, you know, try to mirror ourselves against. But the fact of the matter is that their tourist season is much longer and broader than ours. Now, either, you know, their city can't necessarily do anything about that. But if we don't do something, we're going to end up with one empty building, most likely, because they're not going to. It's not going to pencil out, and it'll sit empty and go into disrepair, and possibly the event center. I mean, it wasn't.
At this point, you know that we don't have a definition of what open means. So tell me if I'm wrong, but a business could open for an hour or 2 hours and be considered open at this time. And so I don't know how prohibitive it would be to be open for even a short time so that you're meeting the definition to retain your liquor license. To me, it seems like it would be worth it. But I don't obviously have all the details of whether that's true, whether that would be worth it.
Well, the fact remains that there is no way a 300-seat restaurant is going to make it.
Well, there isn't one.
Right. It's
In
just
Washburn.
the area in which we live, and we try to govern, is very different than it is just 60 miles south of here.
Correct.
This is 90 days of tourism, period.
Correct.
We've lost
However,
most of our snowmobiling. We've lost, well, it just doesn't exist. Not enough of it exists for a business to pencil out to be forced to be open all winter long, and competing with other alcohol selling businesses that are also trying to do the same thing for the same 4 people that are driving through town that day. It just doesn't work.
Come on now, we have more than 4 people driving through
Well,
town.
I mean,
Still want to have business.
And keep in
4
mind,
days.
this is the same number of licenses that we have had since, what's the year that it was determined what our number of licenses was?
1997.
97.
Exactly. And I get that.
And so,
Times have changed. Things change.
understood,
Things change.
but the number of licenses hasn't changed,
Exactly.
and the statutes haven't changed, and so we're trying to work within the current
The
framework.
city is about to enforce this ordinance on 2 businesses in particular.
We're not about to,
We have,
it just, this has been the ordinance, we have chosen not to enforce it during COVID,
right?
and it takes a year to determine whether you've been open,
Exactly.
so
Understood.
just to clarify, we're not about to.
And are not both Bell Tower and the events that are open and running bars at this point?
Yes,
Yes, they are, but they are not going to be for 180 days.
But the mayor is suggesting there are ways that you can be open without having to have 180 days consecutive from January, February, March. You can open New Year's Day, March 1st. And then
but you still do have to be open 180 days of the year.
Mhm.
So I think because there was a misunderstanding with the interpretation of that wording, it would behoove everyone to now look at that with the correct interpretation in mind of whether that helps at all or not, being not closed for 180 days of the consecutive days, and then being open for 180 days. So you're saying you think 180 days is too much regardless, to be open during a 1-year period? Even if it's not consecutive?
I think we should negotiate to 90 days.
Tony, do you mind muting whoever that is?
It's already muted.
Thank you.
I mean, I think 90 days is a, you know, it fits right in with our tourist season.
June
You
through
know,
August, not even into September?
90 days. I look at books, we got 90 days to make money.
Oh, I disagree.
90 days to make money.
I think we should
June
much more than
is,
that.
June is not even a thing. It's not until July, August, September. 3 months.
Those are the primary months.
Yep,
Yes.
3 months. So after that, depends on the business, obviously.
Okay, Tom, did you have something?
I think it's longer than 90 days because it starts earlier than that, but the pickup is in June, yes. And then it goes on, but it still stays up past Apple Fest, and then it drops off till ice hits. And once there's ice, that hotel is full, and these bars, they're busy.
Well, they may, yes, I'm not saying they're not. But there are a few that if they had the choice to close and relieve well, they're being forced to be open for a certain amount of time. If they were allowed to close and save their overhead, you know, I don't know.
All right, I think everyone has had a chance here a few times, so I'm gonna go ahead and call a vote on this. So the motion as it stands is to approve the amended ordinance as presented for 45 days, being open for at least 45 days.
I'll amend my motion to 90 days.
Okay, and then who was the second? Karen? Do you agree with that amendment?
I will second the amendment for, get it on.
For a vote? Okay, so amended motion is 90 days instead of 45. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion fails. So we can certainly continue to look for other options or other amendments for the future, but at this time, we will move on to the next item, which is discussion and action on authorizing notice for Carlin Yellowbird Gallery at 318 West Bayfield Street for issuance of a Class B fermented malt beverage license. This is tab 6.
Madam Mayor, I would move the approval of the authorizing notice for issuance of a Class B permitted malt beverage license with the provision that the installation of the second doorway be completed.
So contingent on that, and then a second by Dave.
And just to clarify there, the publishing can happen prior to the completion of the second entryway. The license just cannot be valid or issued until that second entryway.
I can remove that provision.
I think that
Okay.
right now we just need to authorize the publishing
Right,
for
okay.
the posting
All right.
notice.
So I will remove that from my motion if that's okay with the second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to proceed with an authorizing notice. Any comments, questions, or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is discussion and action on consideration of sale and land swap of property tax IDs 35809 and 32800 to Mark Boltman and Jean Underwood. This is tab 7. We have two mistakes in a row here. So I guess I would look for a motion on this item to get us started with discussion. Scott has something.
Well, so the way this is on the agenda is I presented the information for you. You are free to make a motion if you want during open session or discuss this in open session. Ms. Underwood and Mr. Boltman are here. If you have any questions, I did put it on the closed session. If you want to discuss anything or negotiate anything, you have that option, but it's not required.
Okay, thank you for that.
And that was why I hesitated, because I didn't know whether we could talk about selling the property within open session, but with Scott's clarification, I would recommend that the outline sale and land swap of property as included in Scott's memo be approved.
Second.
Motion by Karen and second by Carl. Any questions, comments, or discussion on this item? Go ahead.
Well, my only comment is that it seems to me that that is, at long last, a win-win for all involved. Clean that up and make sure that the access that we need is on our city property and gives an opportunity for the owners to have some additional land that they want. So it seems to me it's a win from both sides.
Turning making lemonade out of lemons. Any other comments or questions?
One of my questions is, so I'm trying to look at the map on my little teeny tiny phone. That we have enough land that we've thought about the fact during the swap that if we have to expand or we have to do something different with that, like wellhead area, that we're good, you know? We've planned for the unexpected.
And, oh, as far as needing more space in that area?
Yeah.
Potentially? Okay.
Yeah.
Here's Scott to answer that.
Would not anticipate needing more space in that area. So this is a access for a sewer lift station. At some point, the lift station may need to be upgraded or changed or something, but the functional size of that would not be of any significance that would require additional land.
Okay. I was just know that sometimes we talk about upgrading these lift stations and just want to make sure that we have enough room to do so.
Thank you. That was a very
Thank
good
you.
question. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Seeing not, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for working that through with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And then we can skip our next item. We do not need to go into closed session then. And we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks
Recording
for,
stopped.
Hi, Jim.
yeah, glad I could make it, and sorry I'm not there, but